Open up your concordance to the word tamid. Where do we find the word tamid? What does tamid mean? Well, it means always, constant. Something that has to have constancy. Now, you find it, at least in the Torah, not in Tanakh, but in the Torah, invariably, tamid is used to modify what? What do we see? Aspects of the Mishkan and the sacrificial service. Tamid is used to describe the fire on the altar, the daily korban on the altar, the washing of the Kohanim, their hands and feet, the bread on the table, the incense on the inner altar, lighting the menorah, and I think that's it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the priestly vestments that the Kohen also always has to have the tzitz and the gemstones with the names on them, right? The way the Kohen Gadol has to dress. That's always a tamid. That's where the word tamid is used in the avoda. Right? The avoda, like Shimon HaTzadik said, it's the pillar of the world. And then there's one more context when tamid shows up outside the tabernacle. Anybody want to venture what it is? Or they're already doing a search. The one time the tamid does not appear in the Torah in connection with the temple service. It is what? Okay, God's eyes. Moshe Rabbeinu says in Akif, if I'm not mistaken, that God is always looking at the land. Tamid einei Hashem Elokecha. And God's eyes are always there, whether or not to give you rain. He's always looking. There's a deep connection in our service of God on a constant basis, and the existence of the sanctuary shows you what we're missing. Even if, by the way, I heard someone make a good argument. Why the Rambam stop at the sacrifices? Perhaps the whole idea of a temple is primitive and is an allowance for what was then, but eventually mankind, and Am Yisrael in particular, would get to a sophisticated future where it no longer needs a central temple, just like sacrifice would no longer be necessary. That's not the way people relate to God. The answer is, the temple is much more than that. Maybe even you could make an argument against the service, but the fact that we need a place of centralized location is a unifying factor in Am Yisrael. We understand what we're missing. I find that a lot of the sillinesses that exist among the people today would be instantly forgotten. We'd realize how foolish it is, especially, let's say, talk, Ashkenazim and Sephardim, and all the other subgroups of people, categories they put themselves into. You're not going to daven at the Ashkenazic or Sephardic temple. You're not going to go to a more frummy or a more Haredi shul or a temple. You're going to go to the one temple. When all the Am Yisrael are going to go there and keep halach as God commanded Moses. And in the temple, by the way, the sages did not do something that we find elsewhere in the Torah, and that is what? Make rabbinic enactments. In the temple, people know to stay in line. So you don't have to put a mechitza in the temple. You could have men and women standing in the Zohar. And by the way, it says sefufim. People know about that. They would be standing, they'd be packed, and then they bow down. They would have enough room. In those situations, their dafka was not a mechitza. Men and women and families all together. There was no need, okay, to be able to go to the temple. Sexual contact before and immediately after is strictly out of the question. It wouldn't get on anybody's mind. It would make you contaminated. So there's no reason for such a thing. In the temple, there was no reason to make enactments concerning the Sabbath to tell the Kohanim what to do. There's reason. Okay? The temple is where unity trumps everything, and also keeping the strict letter of the halacha. It's unnecessary to have chumras or any gezeras or anything like that. Type of things that divide us. So we should get back to that.